All right, so we are at 292, talking about the French and Indian War. This was the war that resulted in the British taking control of New France away from the French. A small number of French went back to France. However, the great majority stayed. For most of them, few changes occurred in their daily activities. They farmed the same land, prayed in the same churches, and continued to speak French. Few English speaking settlers came to what is now called Quebec. The British divided Quebec into two colonies. Lower Canada was mostly French speaking, and Upper Canada was mostly English speaking. The boundary between Upper and Lower Canada forms part of the border between the provinces of Quebec and Ontario today. Provinces are administrative divisions of a country. To the east, the colony of Nova Scotia was also divided. A new colony called New Brunswick was created where many of the British settlers lived. Creation of Canada. For several decades, these new colonies developed separately from each other. The colonists viewed themselves as different from the parts of the British Empire. Therefore, the British Parliament created the Dominion of Canada in 1867. A dominion is a territory of area of influence. For Canadians, the creation of the Dominion was a step toward independence from Britain. The motto of the new Dominion was "From sea to sea." How would Canadians create a nation from sea to sea? With railroads. When the Dominion was established, Ontario and Quebec were already well served by railroads. British Columbia, on the Pacific coast, was not. To connect British Columbia with the provinces in the east, the Canadians built a transcontinental railroad. Completed in 1885, the Canadian Pacific Railway was Canada's first transcontinental railroad. After the Canadian Pacific Railway linked the original Canadian provinces to British Columbia, Canada acquired vast lands in the north. Much of this land was bought from the Hudson Bays Company, which is a large British fur trading business. Most of the people living in the north were Native Canadians and people of mixed European and Native ancestry. With the building of the railroad and the signing of treaties with Native Canadians, early Canadian settlers created a way for more people to settle Canada's new territories. Their culture, 293. Canada's people reflect a history of British and French colonial rule. In addition, the country has experienced waves of immigration. The country is home to a great variety of people who belong to different ethnic groups and cultures. Although individual groups still keep their own cultural ways, many Canadians have tried to create a single national identity. Immigration. During the late 1800s and early 1900s, many immigrants came to Canada from Europe. Most were from Britain, Russia, and Germany. Some people also came from the US. While most of these immigrants farmed, others did work in mines, forests, and factories. So if you look at that map on 293, they're telling you percentages of what ethnic groups are currently in Canada. So the biggest, 28%, is the British Isles origin. So take a look at that table. And 294. Other immigrants were lured to Canada in 1987 by the discovery of gold in the Yukon Territory. Many people from the United States migrated north in search of Canada's gold. Immigrants also came to Canada from Asian countries, especially China, Japan, and India. British Columbia became the first Canadian province to have a large Asian minority. Many Chinese immigrants migrated to Canada to work on the railroads. Chinese immigrants built most of the Canadian Pacific Railway, one of the railroad lines linking eastern Canada to the Pacific coast. All of these immigrants played an important role in the economic boom that Canada experienced in the early 1900s. During these prosperous times, Quebec, New Brunswick, and Ontario produced wheat, pulp, and paper. British Columbia and Ontario supplied the country with minerals and hydroelectricity. As a result, Canadians overjoyed one of the highest standards of living in the world by the 1940s. Okay, I would like you to silent read 294, 295, just two more paragraphs starting at movement to cities.